All right, we are live.
Hey, welcome everyone to episode 3 of Inner Child, Outer Adults. Thank you guys for joining us and coming in. We have an exciting episode for you guys today. We are going to be diving into attachment theory and trauma bonding. So, we have a lot of fun stories for you. We have I've been what's crazy is normally when we do these like podcasts when I go live, I will not really think about it until the day of, and then I
Mm-hmm.
really sit in it just because that's how I operate. And so, but what's crazy is with this one, ever since we ended our last podcast and
Mm-hmm.
we decided like this is what we're gonna do, like it's been on my mind almost every day. And so I
Yeah,
it's
I've been
crazy.
mulling over it in little pieces over the
Yeah,
last couple of weeks too. Like,
yeah,
I
and I right, and I've had a lot of things just like hit me, and I'm like, oh, like that makes sense, And so I have something that kind of came up that I'm going to share with you, and I kind of want your like perspective on it too,
okay,
because
cool.
it really shows like to me the influence of what movies can have on kids. So,
Oh,
and I think you'll be surprised at the movie that I pick. It's
ooh, I am intrigued.
this hit me yesterday, and I was like, okay, I got to watch it. So. Uh,
You have my attention. I'm interested.
but so check this out. Before we dive into it, though, like I was on Facebook this morning, and we have
Mm.
this for our local town. We have this page called the Unedited Dow's Happening, and
Oh
they're
wow.
always there. Yeah, it's cool. It's actually it's really cool for local news because people post things on there that is like they'll post things of like, hey, be careful of this person that's in the neighborhood, or my bags of cans got
Yeah.
stolen, and somebody threw a lit cigarette out their window, and they like put their information, like license plate, and everything on there. Like they snitched them out. So like it's some entertainment to go on there.
Oh, I've
So
done something like that once. There are these young 20 somethings in town that like to race their cars through our neighborhood like they're on the drag strip. They almost mowed my kids over a couple years ago, and I got pictures of the car, and oh, I put them on blast so
so
hard. I was like,
not
dude,
happening,
this
right?
neighborhood is full of kids. This does not need to be happening. Like,
Right. Uh, so when I was on there this morning, like I came across a post that was on there. And have you heard of the religious cult called The Truth?
I haven't. That's a new one to me.
Yeah, it was to me too, but apparently they're operating where I'm at and like the surrounding local towns,
Oh.
and they're based out of Australia. But the
Oh.
thing is, they don't believe in God. They don't believe in they like they're a religious group, but they don't have a structure. They don't have anything biblical that they follow. It's kind of
There's
just like
no deity or
no
or
nothing.
gospel or anything?
No,
Interesting.
none. But what they have done is they basically they're being looked at through like the FBI is looking for them and like kind of keeping an
Uh-oh.
eye on them right now. Yeah, but because they're being known for marrying minors with adults,
Oh, that's
and
all bad. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
so like that kind of culty living, and so they're really like looking, and they're like warning people like, hey, you might encounter them and da da da, but like that's happening in this area. So it was just like
Ooh.
kind of like I was eye opening because you hear about these things, and just to know like it's like worldwide kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
it's a pandemic in and of
yeah,
itself, and
and
it's
they
heartbreaking.
and I guess this group is what really raised some eyebrows is they instantly forgive like pedophilia and allow them into their group and their like beliefs and everything in their religion, and just kind of allow them into the community. So yeah, it's pretty messed up.
It
Uh
it it that requires treatment. Um,
yeah.
you can't eat a cracker and write that away. That requires psychological treatment.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So, that's the thing too. It's, you go through these, for us, right? Because you go through these areas of life where it's like you organized religion it's so hard. Like I was talking about this with my mom, like it always turns into like power and greed, and like it's so
It can,
hard to
yeah.
differentiate between, it's like, is this group really here to be there for us? Is this one not? So when we go down these like areas of life of like trying to heal and trying to just trust people and trying to understand who we are, I totally understand why people have so much doubt towards all of these organizations and structures and things that are within society,
And I
because
think the key is like the people, because there's even in my church, like I've been towards where uh things were very cliquish, and like you had to be perfect or you were kind of outcast. And then I've been towards where everyone is just so loving and opening and not
yeah,
non-judgmental that anyone can walk in and
right,
feel at home. So I think the big thing there is the culture of the group
yeah,
at any, like, location.
just like anything else, right? The intention of behind,
Mhm.
in reality, in those instances, I would say like the leadership is
Yeah.
what I would say, because everything, like the whole world always starts with leadership from the top down. And I guess that's kind of like even going into what we are going to talk about today, because that attachment theory or that trauma bonding, it always starts from the top down. Who's the most powerful, you
Well,
know?
it starts with the relationships with, like, your caregivers and your authority figures.
Yeah. And it really can, because like, so for me, with my youngest one, she's coming into that age where she doesn't want to like cuddle as much, or she's not around, like wanting
Mhm.
to spend all of her time with me now. She's wanting to spend actually her own time, and you know,
Yeah.
honestly, it's harder on me than it
She's
is on
getting
her.
independent.
She is. And so it's like, and what's crazy and really fun, I think, about this topic is it really hits for me right now, because I'm having to fight the battle within myself of being okay with just like, yes, like I want you to be independent. I want you to just like come love me when you want to love me. I'm here for you. I'm
Mhm.
always here from you. But deep
Yeah.
down, like part of me is like, I want to hug you and cuddle you and love you all the time, because I don't want to let that go. So I want to keep that baby girl part of me, but it's just
Yeah.
like,
Oh, every year they get older, I cry a little inside.
right?
But I mean, that goes back to our topic as well, because like if you've built that secure attachment with your kids, then even as they're growing up and getting independent and starting to branch out and explore like what their life and what their path is going to be and what they want to do with themselves, like if that secure attachment is there, it's never something to be worried about, because you'll
Yeah.
always be home base in that place of safety and security.
Absolutely. And I think it allows them, in the biggest aspects is for them to have like be independent within their own selves, because it really teaches them independence. But
Mhm.
it also allows them to make big decisions in their life without
Yeah.
having to get permission, or even a partner's, I guess permission is the best way to do it, right? Without having to make sure like it's going to be okay that I make this purchase. Because if you're in a partnership, should you discuss things? Absolutely. But, you have those moments, and I've seen this, and I've also been a part of this, where you just don't feel comfortable making that big decision unless you completely clear it through your partner first.
Yeah.
And when you approach your partner, you're not approaching them like letting them know, like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make it work. But we come to them in a submissive way, and we show up submissively asking them that permission in a way that is giving them the authority over us.
Yeah.
And
Instead of like an open like communication, hey, I want to do this, and
yeah,
it's, oh, can I do this, will you let me, you know
absolutely. And you see it in both like men and women that are in relationships, and I've been, for me, when I was younger years, I was with somebody that she made more money than I did. And
Yeah.
so in her mind, she was the breadwinner of the house. So it was even to the point where, like, but she told me how to dress, like what to wear, like everything. Like she basically was like, it's like I was like a Ken doll at that point to her,
Yeah.
right? Is kind of how it felt. But at first it felt great having the attention, and so it's like I had that attachment in that aspect of my life with it. But over time you just realize, like, I'm literally just a Ken doll and I'm done with this and I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of break that attachment that you have, and you kind of heal that spot where you bonded. Um, but
Well,
I think in a lot of times though, when we come into that connection, we're always looking for somebody or something to fill the voids of where we don't hold ourselves accountable or don't trust ourselves in our own life.
yeah, when you're lacking, that foundation of security, there's a lot of questioning and self-doubt and looking for like validation and permission outside of yourself, because like you don't feel like you can give yourself permission. Do we want to talk
Yeah.
about, because there's four different attachments, and secure is obviously like the best one. You want to have secure attachment because that's, where you're comfortable with intimacy and boundaries, and you have that safety and that security, and like you can be yourself and communicate and get your needs met without having to, make a sacrifice or give yourself away, or um
Yeah. Like, you just feel that, like, it's that independent, and you just literally feel
yeah.
independent in your own life.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's interdependence too, because the other three types, which are the preoccupied or the anxious, the dismissive or the avoidant, or the fearful and disorganized, like all of those have like they're on this spectrum of like codependency.
Yeah, and sometimes we experience one, sometimes we experience all, it
Yeah.
depends on what we're going through, right? And it's crazy because it all starts with us being in a vulnerable situation,
Mhm.
and we feel in those vulnerable situations, we have to give over part of us to whoever is helping us out or keeping us captive, or whoever has that authoritative figure over you, and we find that a lot in relationships. So
What would you say, like looking back at like, because it solidifies, in your formative years. So by the time you're like, 5, 6, 7, you pretty much got your starting attachment style, going on.
yeah.
But like, so if you're looking at like your tweens, teens, early 20s, like what would you say, like which of the attachment styles would you say that you struggled with or got stuck in?
um I would say I was really submissive a lot with where I was at in those moments, and it was, I would say, trying to find somebody to see and recognize me, just literally see me for me, and not judge me for any of my
Yeah.
flaws that I saw in myself.
So
So it's
like
pretty
anxious, you're like trying to craving the intimacy and the security and the bond and doing whatever it takes
yeah.
to get that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say that was probably my biggest struggle, especially in my teens, during those times. Yeah. What about you?
I would say, actually, I kind of cycled through all three of the less secure ones. Like I had the anxious attachment where I was like, my safety and security was like not being met, And so I very much craved safety and protection and intimacy from the people around me. And at a like when I was pretty young, I learned, just through interaction and observation that like that's something you had to like pay for in a way, like you had to earn it. And then I also had times where, like, I would just push people away and be like, "Nope, you're not welcome. It's not safe. I've got this. I'm on my own. I'm the only person I can
Yeah.
rely on. Like, no." And but then, like, there like, so the avoidant, but then, like, the disorganized, I would bounce, like, back and forth. It's like I couldn't decide if I was going to, like, uh do what I had to or sacrifice what I had to try and fit into the box to get it, or if I was just gonna like I bounced back and forth between craving it and pushing it away and craving it and
Yeah.
pushing it away.
What's interesting is when it really has a huge effect when, like, for us, as I'm gonna say, as a parent, I'm gonna say, just as me being a parent, and I look back now in the early years of our children, like, before they crawl, as they start to crawl, before they can really be any form of like independent,
Yeah.
they talk to us through sounds, through crying, through
Yeah.
aggravation, right? And how we handle that in the moments, I think, really has the one of the biggest influences on our child's development of the attachment theory, of just being attached, and how they get recognized, how they get seen, how they get what they want.
Yeah.
Because me looking back with my two oldest, they're 24 and 25. So to see where they are independently on their own path, like within their own relationships, their own career, what the path that they've chosen for themselves,
Yeah.
what I see is, because I can reflect honestly about where I was, as a parent in their life and in that time, and how I was different, way different with both of them.
Mhm.
Um, and I can see how my choices and my reactions in those early years, in those moments, really influenced the paths that they chose in their life, which I'm proud of both of them. Both of them are
Yeah.
doing amazing. One of them he's in border patrol.
Oh,
Uh,
how cool.
yeah, he's doing awesome, and he's married. He's doing great for himself. Like, I'm so proud of him, and my second oldest, he is actually, in the path of like pharmacy, and he travels for the company,
Oh.
and so he's single, and he's just kind of living his life and enjoying the free world, right? So
Hey, there's
he's
plenty of time.
right, and that's how he feels too, and he's dated people, and like he's been in and out, but like I think he's really just found his own solitude within himself, and how happy he is by himself, just because he doesn't need anybody.
That's really cool.
So I see the two difference in both of them, and I look at it now and I reflect, and it's like, man, like I really see where my choices are having had a major impact. And I see that more so now with my younger, like with the kids that are still at home. I'm
Mhm.
just like, wow, like, okay, I like right now really is the major part of, they're looking at you to see what you're doing, how you're doing this,
Oh,
and
yes. I mean,
it never changes.
they absorb everything like a sponge. So it's like all the skills and the coping techniques and the things that you want to teach them that they can carry forth into their lives, like we have to walk the walk because they are watching so closely. And I mean, and it's just like, we look at our own attachment styles when we were growing up. Why did we have those attachment styles? Because there was stuff going on at home. Like,
Yeah. And if they don't see you holding yourself accountable and responsible, for your actions, inactions, decisions,
yeah,
whatever, they see that and they understand that, and they start adapting and molding their life to either doing it in that way or trying to do the complete opposite, because they see what you're struggling with isn't working for you. And
yeah,
so it's they become attached into their own theories, ideologies, just perspective of life itself, and a lot of it is influenced and based on those that are the biggest guide in their life, right?
Well, and there's a learning process to it too, because like when you grow up with an insecure attachment style, like you it's that reparenting concept. You have to like look at that inner child inside of you and be like, okay, what did I not get that I needed that would have built a secure attachment for me to my caregivers and my family and all of this and you have to like make those cycle breaker shifts so that you can provide that ability to have a secure attachment like for your
Yeah,
kids, and that requires like really getting in touch with yourself and really examining like what kind of parent do I want to be.
exactly, exactly. And what's crazy is, um, I was just looking at the window in my background and I see a silhouette of a figure, of like a male figure. I know it's like a spirit. I can see it. Uh, but I feel like it's my grandpa just standing right there.
Oh, that's
That's
cool.
cool. So it was crazy. So talking about the kids, right? So I was reflecting in this movie. Oh, so I wanted to look up Stockholm syndrome movies because I was curious, like what's out
Yeah,
there about, which is because Stockholm syndrome is really just about being attached to something, or
it's
having
it's
that.
the it's the it's the like extreme side of that trauma bond, that
Yeah,
codependency that you learn because you haven't been taught healthy relationships and healthy interactions.
and you're live within it long enough that like it gets spun to where it's okay and it's acceptable, and it that being treated a certain way is okay because it's being done for a specific reason, right?
Yeah. Well, and
And
it's, it I
it's
lost
like
what I was
it's
gonna
like
say.
gaslighting to the extreme, really.
Yeah.
So you're kind of brainwashing someone to believe something to be true that isn't necessarily true, but it's not their thought, not their perspective on it, but you're forcing them to see it through your perspective. And you see it a lot in unhealthy relationships and toxic relationships. So when
Well,
I
and
was looking,
especially, like, if that's all you've known, like, you don't know that that's not normal. I think, like,
yeah,
I was, like, 15, 16, 17 before I really started to, like, look at the dynamics, like, in my friends' homes and, like, compare to, various home lives and be like, "Oh, wait,
yeah,
this is totally different. Why didn't we do things this way? Like,
right. And
where's the disconnect? I don't understand. Like, is this normal and I'm not normal, or, like."
right? And I have this theory of why toxic relationships are more acceptable as you get older, and why it is just like kind of part of an acceptance in society in some ways. And this movie like showed me where the influential at the young age was, and it's Beauty and the Beast.
Oh my god.
So
Yeah. Is it telling that Belle is my favorite princess? Because she's a bookworm. Like,
right?
let me
So
be clear. Okay, semi-clear. I liked The Beast too. Like, I liked the whole story. Like, it
like,
was awesome. But
it
the
was an
library was what I was truly in love with.
fair enough. So I love the movie too. It's beautiful artwork, even like the animation one, the live action one. Like it was a really good movie, and it's a good storyline. It really is,
Mhm.
and I understand that they might have meant the message to be, a positive message of let's accept people for who they are. We can learn to love them for who they are, right?
Yeah.
I totally get all of that, and I am on board for all of it. Now, looking
Let's
at
be
this,
honest, Disney didn't give us good relational examples in their early movies.
which is true,
Of course,
and
most of them are based on some, like, really graphic old world fairy tales because things were ugly back
yeah,
then, so
this is true. And looking at the movie from like a law enforcement perspective from of this, because I kind of looked at it in that way, and also looked at it in, like a father of, with your children and being attached,
Mhm.
and just the vulnerability of everybody. So Belle originally goes and looks for her father, right?
Yeah, 'cause
And
he goes
he,
missing.
he goes missing.
Yeah.
And when she goes out there, that's when she has the encounter with the beast, which, if we think about it, is we can dissect it in many different ways. But if you look at it, he is the alpha male in that
Yeah.
situation. And
Well, I
he
mean, he's
is
a spoiled rotten prince to begin
exactly,
with, so
exactly who wants power. He's a narcissist in that manner.
well, as
And
a royal,
so,
he was, like, taught and groomed to, like, power and control, so,
yeah,
it's that
exactly.
standard archetype.
Power over the poor. And so he lands himself in a very precarious situation where he is now turned into a beast, has to find love, and so, or he, perishes, and everybody stays the way they are if he doesn't get there before the last petal
Yeah.
falls. Everybody knows the story. So in that situation, if you think about it, his kidnapping Belle is him taking, okay, I'm going to force her to love me because I need something in my life. And so that's the toxic part of the relationship, where you
Yeah.
get that trauma bond and you get that, attachment to him, right?
Yeah, in the
And
beginning, he's very controlling, he's very domineering, "You will join me for dinner," and she's like, "Haha,
yeah,
guess again, buddy," like
she's strong and she thinks that she's independent because she's independent. And we see that in the beginning of the movie. She
Mhm.
lives her life how she wants. She goes to talks to everybody and anybody. She has full free will in her life.
Well, and she
But
had a dad that was very supportive of her, being who she
yes,
was, and, like, he didn't, look down on her and try to change her for being odd or different or intelligent, God forbid, you know?
he was an inventor, right? I believe he was an
Yeah.
inventor.
Yeah, he
So he
was.
was doing his own thing, and he was loving what he did. And she loved what she did. So it's like they had this perfect harmony and this perfect balance.
Mhm.
Well, this alpha comes in and, doesn't swoop her off her feet necessarily, but forces her, persuades her, whatever, to come into his life by force. But then he pushes the dad away and scares the dad away. The dad sounds crazy, and then all that happens. But if we focus
Yeah.
on the relationship part of it, he's constantly berating her, but then his support team is just convincing her to be okay with it, to just join him. And so they're trying to, in a sense, brainwash her that he's an okay person.
Yeah.
And so eventually she folds and she has dinner with them. She starts getting to know him. She falls in love with them. And where I find where it influences our children is it makes young women think that, oh, there's a man that is battered, bruised, beaten down, he's an asshole on the outside,
I
but
can
I
save him.
know exactly. I know there's something squishy in the
I
middle,
can
and
I
I
can
can bring
love
out the
him
Prince
enough
Charming.
that yeah.
Yeah, and so
No.
I think it conditions them from the very beginning to accept a toxic relationship, and that if you try hard enough and you can change somebody. But what they're
Well,
not seeing is she's being forced to do this.
yeah, well, and it's interesting because if you wanna dive deeper on that, she has one of those at either end because back in her hometown, she has Gaston who's trying to corner her and force her into marrying him, and what he wants is the perfect little housewife and 6 children and, like,
Yeah.
barf. And
They both wanted something from her that she didn't want to give.
yeah, but it's and I think the, like Beast could have continued to be like, you know, Gaston, like that kind of person.
Yeah.
But it what had to break for him to make that change, because she couldn't change him. Like, she could influence him, but he had to make the
Yeah.
decision to be different, which eventually he does. She gets put in danger, and he has to make the decision to not be selfish and go out there and put himself in harm's way to
Yeah.
protect her. And then she shows him gratitude in return, and it's like this aha moment where, oh, you mean, like, I'll get good things back if I'm not a total jerk? Like,
Right?
so it's that redemption side of it, that, like, Gaston had no intention of changing, no interest
Right.
in changing. He was always going to be the toxic relationship. But, like, Adam, I think he's like one of the few Disney princes that actually has a name, and if I remember right, it's Adam. But he hit a turning point where he recognized, oh crap, if I want people in my life, I can't be selfish.
Yeah, which I think is a beautiful message because that's something that you and I help others focus on,
Yeah.
right? Because and it's about helping our kids see, I think, the direction of where like the message should go,
Mhm.
really, because it can really get skewed a lot. And I completely agree. Like, I think it's about recognizing that, you see these red flags in people, but because we've been in like like for my relationship when it first started with Sherry, we were both battling hidden trauma that, we sometimes didn't even know that we had, you
Yeah.
know, and
Well, a lot of times you don't. Like,
right.
until you have that groundbreaking pivotal moment, you could go years without realizing that, like, I am not
Yeah.
functioning
Right. It's like
at a
honeymoon
good
stage.
level. Yeah.
Honeymoon stage, realization stage, which is like the toxic stage. And that if you get through that, then yeah, there's beauty on the other side of it. And it's hard to get to that other side if you're going through that. And if you've had these struggles in life, and so it's like I see that in the movie that it's like you get to these points within your partnership and you're like, okay, we can get through this. And it's about seeing that, you both are working on your insecurities. You're both working on what, your own kryptonite, what's struggling you. And you see,
Yeah,
because I
because
think
everybody
that
has
was,
one.
yeah.
Everybody
And
has
I,
their own flavor of kryptonite. Like, nobody's
right.
perfect.
And I think that was the message was like Belle and Beast is look, we're both having to grow and change and see things from a different view and understand each other. And they kind of taught each other to be different. And I think that's very powerful. But how it started was like you
Yeah.
were kidnapped and forced to like me. Like
You were
that I
you
don't
were
agree with.
imprisoned, literally, until the magic
Right.
candlestick said, "Dude, give her a bedroom. We have plenty."
Exactly, right? But that doesn't make it okay.
No,
So
not
it's
at
like
all.
the message is if you're in a relationship and it's like a long-term relationship and it's, you've been together for a few years and you're now having a hardship, we can work through that. But if a relationship starts off in that rocky way, chances are it's not going to be a long fulfilling relationship because you're attached to them or they're attached to you like in some form of way, and so it's tough.
Or the opposite side of the coin, where you stay in the relationship because you don't have self-worth, and you don't have value, and you don't have self-esteem, because it's just been so battered down that it doesn't even, like, occur to you
Yeah.
that you deserve more, or you deserve better. Or so you
Yeah.
can get stuck in that part of it as
and
well.
and unfortunately it's easier to uh sometimes give that power over to your partner as
Mhm.
well, because in the instances where you see it a lot in the relationship, it's I'm gonna let you make the choices and decisions, and a big part of it is because when something goes wrong, there's someone to blame, and it's not gonna be me. And
Yeah.
we
That
find
that's a piece of programming that I'm still I'm still working on it. My husband is awesome because he helps me with it a lot, where he'll be like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do this? Or do you want to do that? And I'm like, I don't care. I'm easy to please. And he's like, no, pick something. I'm like, oh, all right. So you make me
Yeah.
battle against my indecisiveness. Like,
Right. And it's hard because when you do make that choice, you still like it's a beautiful thing because you don't make it fully selfishly either because you're also taking everybody into consideration. You're like, okay, well, if I choose this, then I know that I'm literally probably the only one that's going to enjoy it, and that's not fair for the other, four or five, six of you.
yeah.
But if you can look at it and say, well, I do know the majority of us will probably enjoy this experience. Yeah, okay, we'll go with this one, and so you
Well, and I mean,
still,
I genuinely don't care. I'm like, we want to have whatever for dinner. Okay, like, here's what we'll have for dinner. You guys want to watch this movie? Cool, let's watch this movie. We
right?
want to go to a restaurant. I'll split a plate with you. Like I genuinely is not something that I get hung up on because I'm the type of person that
Yeah.
can find enjoyment in pretty much whatever I'm doing or eating or but it's that part of me that learned to be real submissive and self-sacrificing. He's like, no, like your wants matter too, your interests matter too. I don't want to just do what me and the kids want to do all the time. You get to pick sometimes too. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm getting better at it. Every once in a while, I'll go like, I don't care. And he's like, you're not allowed to say that. And I'm like, okay, hold on, give me a minute to think,
Right.
that I have to measure it out. What do I really want? Like,
And sometimes that's all one person might need though is like just every now and then be included and reminded, because like some people are very easy, go with the flow. Like I can literally find joy in anywhere we go,
yeah,
and
I'm that way. I'm just like, cool,
yeah,
whatever, let's go.
I'm
Like,
like that with Sherry and even the kids. They're just like, I want to do this or go do that or this, experience this. And for me, I'm just like, as long as I'm with you guys, like think I'll enjoy anything that we do. Like that's kind of how I feel like being a father at this point is just I want to enjoy whatever you guys want to enjoy, but they do remind me every now and then, like, well, what do you want, or where do you want to go, what do you want to do, and because they start feeling bad because I can tell in them too that like you haven't picked anything in a while, and so
yeah.
they'll like well you got to pick a movie or you this and like the hard part is it's like when I do pick something, I find that I'm like literally the only one interested in it, and so it's like, it's not even enjoyable because it's just me. I would rather everybody enjoy what we're doing rather than just me. So I find that I have to pull away and I just give myself that time like on
Hmm.
my own. I'm just like, okay, well, I'll go watch this movie or this show on my phone or the computer or just somewhere where it's like give myself a couple hours to just break away, and I find
Yeah.
that that's really all I need. And so for me, being able to just be there for them, I used to think that that was unhealthy. I used to think that that was just me being submissive and not standing up for myself. And then I would get angry over time because I would never break away and give myself alone time.
Well, and
And
I think even like that's another pitfall of like the insecure attachments, because like when you do have that self-sacrificing, easygoing, like attitude about things, like you can tell yourself, oh, I don't have a problem not picking, whatever, we can always do what you guys want to do, but subconsciously, like, it's not true. Like eventually there's gonna come like a breaking point in the frustration or the resentment or the feeling, like not heard or not validated, where it's gonna
yeah,
show itself.
it will. And what I have found is important is when we listen to our intuition in those moments, right? When something does get
Hmm.
brought up and you kind of have that gut feeling or that like, oh, maybe like I don't want really rather not do that.
Yeah.
Those are the important moments because when it does get like, well, it's about this, and you're like, I actually really don't feel like that. Or, if something comes up and they're like, well, what do you think? And if you actually have a thought or feeling or an idea come to mind, it's about being able to just use your throat chakra, open up and be like, well, what about this? because that's a lot of times we'll mentally think it and we're like, well, this would be fun. But then somebody else speaks up and you're like, oh, cool, let's just go do it. That sounds fun too,
Yeah.
and so we shut ourselves down and, but we do that to ourselves, and it's just when we come into, which, like you said, you've kind of on this path right now too, is when we come into knowing and understanding our own personal energy, our intuition, and we have that connection between our mind, our body, and our soul, and we just understand all three of them. Then we find that we can speak up when we need to, or when we're feeling it, or if we really want to put our input in, and we find that we have the strength to actually say it in those times. But those times it really just doesn't matter to us, we are fully able to be submissive and be like, I really don't care, like, you guys just do whatever, and I want to be here for the ride. But I think what we lose sight of is that communication of, like, I don't want to take the reins today, and that was something I had to deal, like, for me to relinquish that to Sherry and be able to communicate that with her, and especially being the man of the house, right? Like,
Yeah.
I had to be like, hey babe, like, I literally don't feel like adulting today or doing this today or cooking dinner or whatever. It's like, can you step up and just like handle this for me?
Yeah.
And I've learned that it's because it was so hard growing up in like the 80s. Like, you do that, you turn your man card in, or it's like all those
Oh, yes.
negative things that, like, you asking a woman to like step up for you, like, you can't do that.
All those
And it's
lovely little programs.
yeah, and it was like I had to break through all of that to just be like, like, I just don't fucking feel it today. And so it's like it's okay for me to take that break, but it's like you can't forget to, like, ask your spouse for it. And what we found, and I found this in my previous relationship, is my spouse was also so worn down that when you would ask them to step up, being like, look, I don't feel like doing this today, can you cover for me? Well, I've been doing this and this and that and taking care of the kids and do this, and when you're at work and blah blah blah, like, you get into that pissing battle, right? Of, oh my god, like, who, you can't have a break because I didn't have a break, and it's just that back and forth, and
Well, it's also
you
a form of gaslighting too, because it's like, "Oh my gosh, I do all of this for you and you're asking for more?"
Yeah, absolutely. Like, because for me, especially when the kids were young and I was married, like my first marriage, I would come home, I'd work, 8 to 10, 12 hours a day, and I'd come home
Mhm.
from work and I would literally just want a break. Like,
Yeah.
I just need 5 minutes. But on retrospect, like, because we were young, like 18 years old, 19 years
Yeah.
old,
And that's
I,
hard.
yeah, I was 19, she was 18. But we had two kids a year apart to the day. So, like, in these moments, we had two kids in diapers, two kids on the hip. It was like having twins. And so you're like at this out of high school age, and you
I
have these
have Irish
twins.
twins too, I get it.
So, exactly. So it's like, so it's hard. And so, but for, like, I walk in the door and I need that 5 minutes to decompress for a minute. Like, but
Mm.
then it was like she comes into like the living room and she's like, here's your kids, and you're just like,
Tap out.
whoa, wait a
Like
minute. And so it's like you're going through this battle back and forth, like, who deserves it, who doesn't deserve it, and so it's like and at such a young age, you don't understand what the
Yeah.
hell's happening, and so you just can't have this healthy relationship, healthy connection, and so, but then fast forward like 20 years later into my life, I have I kind of start over again. Like,
Mhm.
I tell myself I'm never getting married, I'm never doing this again, I got divorced, I love the single life, and then Sherry comes into my life now. Although if something happened, I would probably be single for the rest of my life
I
again.
did I did tell my husband, we had that conversation. He's like, "If I die first, are you gonna remarry?" I was like, "Uh-uh. I've seen what's on the dating scene right now. I will be a happy widow."
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
I,
you are my one and only. Like, I
like,
can't even compromise. I can't even comprehend being with
yeah,
someone
like,
else. Just no.
no thanks. I can't even try. So, it's crazy, right? And so,
Well, and
you
there's
get.
there's a learning curve to that too, because like, yeah, you guys were like really young, and like think about it, like
Yeah,
the brain is still developing all the way up into like, your 20s, so like you're still growing up,
for
at that
sure.
point. But um it's comforting in a way, like when we can look at ourselves and go, oh man, like 20 years ago, whoo, I was in the muck, I was a mess, I was, like, look at all this stuff, and then like, compare it to now. Okay, may not be perfect, may not have everything going on the way that it
Yeah.
needs to be. I'm working on it, but the difference is there, and you can
Oh, for
see
sure.
the difference, and it's that comforting knowledge that like nothing is fixed. There is no glass ceiling that you can't push through. Like just because you grew up
Yeah.
with an unhealthy attachment style and learned unhealthy relational interactions, like there's always time to change that. It just takes like educating yourself, getting help and support, and making those steady steps to, okay, I want to be this type of person.
Yeah, and and it's your drive in life because like I know for me in my teens, 20s, especially starting young and my oldest was at my high school graduation is like that's where I started my adulthood, right? And I left my inner child behind and my inner adult was like or outer adult was like, well, this is what we're doing now. Uh, so all right, let's do this, and so it's like I
And mine
also
was mine was like the reverse, because like adult me would go, "This is a good idea," and then younger me would be like, "See, that was stupid, wasn't it?" Like,
no, it was in some ways it was like I don't know if it was even better that my inner child was like hiding at that time. I don't know. Um,
it's like still
yeah,
stuck in that
I-
fight, flight, freeze
yeah, because
response. Like you have to
I
reprogram that, and it takes
yeah, like
time
I
and
wanted to be
practice.
playful. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to enjoy my kids at that time, but like I was also very focused on in survival mode.
Mhm.
I think is
Oh,
the biggest thing, right? So like
I
at that
I've
age, it was
spent
total
like
survival mode.
3/4 of
Um,
my life in in survival mode.
when I realized that I had that changing point where it was like not feeling survival mode all the time, but I was like actually really proud of myself of where I was at, and I wasn't, and it was after I got with Sherry, and I wasn't like chasing love, and when I was like single, I was still going through a lot of things internally, and so I wasn't making the best decisions still, and my
Yeah,
priorities definitely were not where they should have been. But it was really getting with Sherry, learning, and it was really learning more about myself and learning how I was hurting those around me the most through my own issues that I had with what I was attached to, and the
yeah,
trauma that I had and I put myself through, and the things I just was not holding myself accountable for. I was seeing how it has having a major impact on others close to me, and so that's where for me I had that realization and things changed because instead of coming home and just wanting space
mhm,
and wanting like alone time, I actually started coming home and the kids would like meet me before I even got out of my truck, and they would take my lunchbox and they would give me a hug, and they would run back inside, and like they were excited to see me.
mhm.
And for
That's a
me
good
that
feeling.
it was, and so it's like my drive was my family, and it was making having
Mhm,
them being happy and like just being home, and like I got home and I cooked dinner with Sherry. Even after working all day, we still cooked
mhm.
together, and we had that family time, and I wasn't pushing people away from me. And that's where I had that huge shift. And for me, I felt like I really broke a lot of those attachments when I was able to shift in that direction. Now, I wish to hell I would have seen this different way back in my like teens and 20s. Um,
Hindsight's always 20/20. You look back and you're
for
like,
real.
"Ugh,
Like
why couldn't I
things
have
would have
learned this sooner?"
things would have been way different. But I also wouldn't have had, the other kids in my life, and I wouldn't have Sherry in my life. And it was like obviously things had to play out the way they did. But, for me, it was like I could have made way better choices and decisions if I would have allowed myself to detach from people, places, and things
Mhm.
way earlier in my life and realize the expectations that you're holding yourself to sometimes are actually completely ridiculous within
Yeah.
your life. So
So so let me ask you, like, what if we're talking about um, reprogramming that attachment style in ourselves, what steps do you think that you took, or like specific changes that you made that helped you start like reprogramming from that insecure to that secure attachment style with others?
I recognized the self recognition was a big part of it because Sherry went on her kind of spiritual path, and then I began reading some of the material that she had. So out of
Mhm.
curiosity, which kind of like gave me a different perspective on life. But one thing I had realized internally was that my insecurities and anxiety came out as anger.
Mm.
And when I realized that my own personal anger from my own insecurities were causing my family around me to be hurt and shut down, then that's where I realized had that realization of like, wow, I have something deeper here and something I need to explore because I keep blowing up for no reason,
Yeah.
and so that's what got me to start exploring myself a lot more. But it was when I started reading more about spirituality with like chakras and energy,
Mhm.
and just being aware of your own emotions and what your emotions are and how they control you if you don't be aware of them and just let them process and understand them, and all those fun things that go with it.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started putting myself through the steps of like, okay, it was almost like a 12-step program, that I put myself through, really.
Yeah,
you
it
know
takes work.
yeah, that self accountability is huge. And honestly, I still do it when I find myself falling back into old habits, but it's that have come to Jesus talk with yourself
Mhm.
to let yourself know, like, look, this is where this is affecting either your time, your energy, your influence, your connections. Like, this is where you're literally holding yourself back in life. Now, I can't force you to change, and this is a conversation I have with myself, and the same ones I have with my
Yeah.
clients when I realize things, right? It's like I can't force you to change. I can bring recognition into your life to show you that this is a problem, but you yourself have to take the physical action within your own body to make these physical choices, to do these things to make this happen. And so we tend to have those mental conversations with ourselves, but the follow
Yeah.
through, which we've learned with our children, follow through is freaking
It's
everything.
vital. So vital. It's
Right?
it's that it's that willingness to look in the mirror and be brutally honest with yourself.
Yeah. And take your own damn advice because you
I'm
get
so good at
disappointed.
giving good advice to other people.
But then you get so disappointed when they don't listen to your advice, and you're like, if you would just listen to me, your life would be better. But then it's like you look in the mirror and it was like,
But that's like
huh,
grasping for
how's it
control
going?
too, because like you don't have control over other people's decisions or behaviors. You only
Yeah,
have control of your own. And it's
right.
like it is a process. Like it can take years, it can take, everyone is different, but and you're there's going to be moments where you're going to fall, or you're going to slide backwards into more like victim like behaviors, or that insecure codependency again. And I always used to have a problem with that. Like I really beat myself up and demeaned myself whenever I had those moments where I was just really low. And I remember talking with my therapist about it, and being like that, like the fall is so long. Like, it feels like it takes so long to get to the bottom and then come back up again when I go into those lows. And she was like, "It's long because of how far you've come." Like, she's like, "Think about it. Like 10 years ago, how long did it take you to plummet from, up to bottom? And I was like, oh, 2 minutes, you know.
Right?
But yeah, you got to keep in mind that like you're gonna slip up. You're not gonna get it perfect, but
Yeah.
like look at the fall. The longer the fall, the farther you've really
Yeah.
come, because the fall wouldn't be long if you hadn't made progress.
Right. And what's funny is like I used to like people. Okay, so I'm gonna snitch on myself. So I used to like to people watch, right? But
Yeah.
let's be honest, people watching is judging. Like it is. And you're profiling. And the thing I finally got to a state in my own energetic being and myself that like I don't people watch anymore. Like I'm aware of what people are doing, but I don't sit there and commentate on others because I got to this point in my life where like I would commentate and make comments about whatever, like,
Yeah.
like we do.
You tell
But
yourself a
then,
story about the scene that's playing out in front of you.
yeah, and it's like, oh, I would do this different or I would do that. And look at that. Like, oh, I can't believe that they're doing that. But then it's like, I see this reflection right here. And so when you turn to walk away, you see reflection of yourself and it's like scolding you. Like, how
Mhm.
dare you? Like, really, you're going to say that when you yourself are going through this, and that, and you have all these problems and you're not making these choices in your life. And so you just like hang your head in shame, like, ah, shit, like I'm calling myself out on this. So
Well,
it's
I
like,
mean, and that's like the core concept of shadow work too, is like anything that you find bothersome or offensive or uncomfortable in someone else, it's because you're seeing that
yeah,
part of you reflected like back to you.
exactly. And until you can recognize that it's like you're actually mad at yourself for this and not really upset that they are making different choices, it's like, oh, I'm like, because I've done this too. It's like I see what you're about to go through because I made that same choice, and I don't think that's going to turn out well for you.
Yeah.
So you're already like kind of in this judgmental, like bias stage of like, ooh, But then it's like if you really look at your own self, and it's like, are you really afraid for them because like where you're at, and it's like where
Yeah.
you need to get to, So it's like all these pieces that you're putting together like as you're detaching from all these things that you have attached to your whole
Yeah.
life, so
And that's where the reparenting and the reprogramming comes in too, because I know, like, for me, it was, recognizing that I'm anxious about people or pushing them away, and like, working through the core of why do I respond to people this way, and then learning how to, set boundaries for myself, reprogram my responses, like instead of freezing or running away, uh making myself, stand my ground and speak up for myself instead, even when it's uncomfortable. Because at first, it very much was. I still struggle with it sometimes, and I have to remind myself, no, I have a voice and I get to use it whenever I want. So as long as it's
yeah.
done in a healthy way. But and then yeah, the communicate, learning to recommunicate, that whole process of self discovery and like exploring, who am I without the trauma and the chronic illness and the depression and the anxiety and the programming, like underneath all of that stuff that's been added to me over the years, who is the core, what is the core of who I am,
Yeah.
and getting comfortable with that, and letting go of, relationships that bring me down, ha- uh choosing new habits, oh, I have this, recognizing I have this harmful habit, I need to replace
Yeah.
it. It's that step, it's yeah, it's the 12-step program, it's that step by step by step by step.
For real.
Like
So you said earlier that, if you end up being just you again, then you're completely okay with that, which to me tells me that you're totally okay with being independent now. Like you don't have to rely on somebody, right?
it's
So
becoming easier. Yeah.
in
It
your
was not easy at all at first, and I was just like, "Oh,
when you
no,
were
this is
single,
so
you were constantly
uncomfortable."
seeking somebody,
Yes, I
right?
was very
Yeah.
much hero seeking all the time, constantly.
Yeah, and it's
So
just
bad. It
you.
got me in a lot of trouble.
It's like you don't trust yourself to live on your own, and that
Mm-mm.
feeling and sense of loneliness, like it plays such a huge part in your decision making
Oh,
when
yeah.
because you don't always see people for who they truly are, because
No.
that loneliness you have inside is influencing you to just be okay with whoever they are, because they can fill these gaps in your life that you're struggling with, whether it's financially, intimately, housing, a
Yeah.
vehicle, like some form of emotion, whatever it is that they're feeling for you. You learn to be able to you sit there, and it's not you learn, but you get conditioned to just being to the point where it's like, I'm just going to accept it. I'm going to
Mhm.
accept these flaws and these red flags because I know that I can get this from them. The problem is once those voids get filled enough, you start seeing where those other red flags are also voids within ourselves that
Yeah.
need to be filled, but they were already filled at one time, which is why it was acceptable until you depleted the energy in those once again. And then you just feel completely drained.
Yeah.
And so when you start seeking for that next, you become okay with independence once you get like tired of it,
Mhm.
or you seek someone else and you try to basically go from one lily pad to the other,
Yeah.
essentially. And so it's difficult because that independent part of us is it's always there, but it's until we can take the power back in it is when we stop going from lily pad to lily pad to lily pad, whether it's relationship or trading in car after car after car just to keep up with the Joneses, or
Yeah.
just whatever it may be.
I think the core of it for me, and I honestly I feel like the core of it for a lot of people is that you learn not to trust yourself. You learn that you are not trustworthy as an individual, and even worse is when you go around collecting evidence for why you can't
Yeah.
trust yourself.
Yeah, and you make a bad decision, and like it's not only you berating yourself for that bad decision because you had to live through the consequences of the bad decision, but when you have the support system around you also telling you that it's a poor decision, even though you
Mhm.
already know it was one, and especially like your age of where you are in life, because how we approach our kids in a young age, and we teach them about life lessons at a young age and how to accept it and things like that
Yeah,
makes a huge
learning how
difference.
to take your mistakes and turn them into a lesson and do better the next time you come across something like
Yeah. But if you're like 18 and 20s and 30s and that same support system is now still treating you like that 5-year-old that made a bad decision, and you're
that.
just
Mhm.
putting them down and shaming them, then
The
they
family pariah.
yeah, they're not gonna learn that, like, damn, like it's cool to still make mistakes, like, and so you kind of like try to cover things up, or you try to hide it, or you just start learning to, like, I can't do it right, so here, you do it because I can't do it. And I saw that. For me, I saw that in my kids when I first started teaching them how to cook, because when
Yeah.
they wouldn't do it right, I mean, I'll take over for you, or let me know when it's too hard, and I'll just take over. And I wouldn't keep them included, because for me, it was like, you're taking too long. You're not doing this my way. So it was just like, or you get fear for their safety of how they're doing it. So you're just like, oh, I'll do it because I don't want you to get hurt. You
See, I just
know,
never like to see them struggle, and my husband
yeah,
my husband has to remind me all the time, "No, struggle is good."
right.
"Okay, I won't rescue them." Like,
I
it's
know
hard.
it,
It's
it
hard
is,
not to
it
step in
is.
and rescue them sometimes.
But being there to support them and walk them through it, but letting them make those choices, like it's so direly important for all of us. And I've seen that, and I know you've seen that.
Yeah.
Just in the way with that alone, because like I said, the kitchen, I think, was the biggest struggle for me, because like I think for me, when I never really could cook when I was younger. And when Sherry
Yeah.
got with me, she helped me out a little bit more because I was the type of like if that bitch is on high, it's gonna cook faster. It might burn a little bit,
No.
but I'll still eat it, you know? So like I had that total college mentality and just like everything's in a hurry. And so when I learned that the rest of the family did not like Cajun food the way I did, um, I had to learn how to cook again, you know? So for me, it became something that I became really good at. And so I wanted to control it all the time. I
Yeah.
wanted to cook all the meals. I wanted to do everything. I didn't want help because if it's not done my way, it's not going to taste good. It's not up to my standard. So I realized that because I became really good at something, I raised the bar so high for myself that I didn't let other people have an opportunity to explore um, if to learn from the good and the bads of it and how I
Yeah.
did as I grew with it too. So, for me, relinquishing control of the kitchen was very hard, but I found it's been very effective and it's actually saved me a lot of time. And like those nights I don't want to cook, it's like, hey, Carlos, can you go make dinner? Or, it's like get, one of the kids to just step in and not
Yeah.
have PB&Js, but actually like cook a meal,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no,
So,
I will say that that is quite handy. My teenager cooked dinner once this week when I was really tired, and I was just like, It's you, bud. It's an easy meal. Here's the steps." Like, and then my favorite is usually well on Wednesday nights because the kids have youth activities. We typically do an on your own night. Like you can eat whatever you want for dinner as long as it's healthy and you make it for yourself. Like
fair enough.
because everybody's got to be, you know, at the church building or this person's house like at a specific
Yeah.
time, and I'm just like, I can't drive everybody around and cook dinner, like, so make yourself a hamburger.
For real, right? Absolutely, because it's like and they all eat different times when you have a schedule like that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Wednesday nights tend to be kind of hectic.
yes, yeah, but that way it gives them an option. It's like peanut butter and jelly is there if you want it, but like if you want something else, like you'll have to cook it. But if they know how
Yeah,
to cook it, then at least they can make a decision in their life of like, am I okay with being lazy and just dealing with peanut butter and jelly, or do I want to put the effort into my life and cook something? And when they have the option, it's funny because they will pick cooking something over PB&J most of the time.
yeah, they will. And like I know my kids, like when they first started learning to cook, they were so proud of themselves. They're like, "Mom, look at my scrambled eggs. Try a
Oh yeah.
bite." And I'm like, "These are awesome. Good job." Like that they get excited when they feel that sense of independence. Like I did it by myself and mom and dad
Yeah.
didn't have to help me. Like that's part of that secure attachment is building that confidence in themselves that like even if it's something new and they're not familiar with it, I can still
Yeah.
try and figure it out.
Absolutely, and especially if it's like an adult thing, it's
Mhm.
like you get that sense of accomplishment, like, oh, I can do something that mom and dad can do.
Mhm.
And I remember the first time that my youngest, I want to say she was like 8, maybe even 7, when she made her first pizza on her own. Like she made the dough from scratch, the sauce from scratch, like she did it all by herself,
That's
and
awesome.
it tasted so good too. It was like one of the best ones I ever had, and it was great because I could see the how proud she
Excuse
was, how amazing, like, she was just radiating so much and positive energy because she was like, "I did something, that mom and dad always do." And she got the praise for it, the taste of it, the structure of it, everything from, like, the whole family, just as mom and dad would do.
Yeah.
So it gave her that sense of, like, accomplishment, independence, the confidence in her own self, and so it's like trying to help her explore those on a regular basis, but while still understanding like this world is going to be harsh
Yeah.
and there might be things that come up that are going to offend you, make you sad, emotional, but it's about being aware and in control of your emotions in those times so you still make the best decision for you, and you're not making a decision that is just going to be a temporary band-aid
Yeah.
for that moment, right?
That's what I always try and teach mine is like, look, you're going to feel the full range of emotions. You're going to be happy. You're going to be sad. You're going to be pissed. You're going to be like, what you're feeling, it is okay to feel it no matter what the emotion is. Like, that's where you're at, and that's fine, but it's how we handle our emotions and how we react to our emotions and how we communicate what's going on with us that is the difference between healthy and not healthy.
Exactly. So we thank you guys for hanging in there with us and just listening and joining us for the I don't know our perspectives on attachment theory and trauma bonding and how we've kind of experienced it in our life, and how we're really trying to navigate so our family and our children understand it, and are aware of it, but don't fall into it, so they can have that success at an early start rather than trying to have to navigate it,
And we have
later in life.
several articles linked in the description if you want to read up on attachment styles and trauma bonding on your own. And actually, one of the articles actually has a link to a quiz where you can take the quiz and like if you don't know what yours is already, find out what your current attachment style is.
Yeah, and they can be to people, places, or things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we keep an absolute open mind of just within that like really we can be attached to people, places, and things. Like, and we just have to be careful with it. So, just like every episode, though, we have an inner child challenge that we wanted to throw at you guys, and
Yes. So, since we talked about attachment styles tonight, and at the core of that is self trust, this month's challenge is to do something to build trust with yourself. So, just something small, an accomplishment, a self care task, even something just like marking off your to do list. Make yourself a commitment and then follow through on it, because that's how we build trust with ourselves, is that proof to ourselves that we've got this and we can take care of ourselves and get things done and needs met.
yeah, that follow through and is a huge sense of accomplishment, which builds that trust that we can hold ourselves accountable. That's, I think, a big part of what we all go through is make sure we're holding ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
So,
And we have the Facebook group up on Facebook now. So the link is in the description for the group as well, and you can come join us for more tips, tricks, conversations, challenges that we're going to be having in the group, and you can share your stories and your experiences with everybody else in there.
absolutely. And there's a link in my bio, and I believe in Megan's bio as well, that takes you to our websites where you can book one on one sessions with us. If you're currently going through a struggle with attachments, or, you may feel like you're bonded to somebody and you're not sure whether it's going in a direction that can be a healthy outcome for you in the relationship, or if it's time to just kind of separate ways and understand that I have to go on a new journey. So if you're kind of going through that in your life right now, then I fully recommend booking a one-on-one with either one of us to just kind of navigate those waters and see where am I at, what is the best choices for me to make, and how do I start beginning that navigation without completing a complete disruption in my own life. For those of you that know tarot, that way you don't have a tower moment that's so devastating you have to crawl from the rubbles, but you can start tearing down the old piece by piece so you can start building the new back piece by piece without really anybody knowing that there was a huge transition, and they just realize, oh, like this is who this person is, and they
Mhm.
forget about the old you and they just see who the new you truly is. So
Building your roadmap.
building your roadmap, exactly. Which is kind of leads us into our next episode on August 29th.
Mhm.
We same bat time, same bat channel. We are going to be jumping on and talking about reprogramming your old tapes. So
Talking about self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? Because that little voice in your head is so vital.
that angel and devil on the shoulder,
Knock
listening to
one,
both of
keep the other.
them. You got to listen to both of them, right? Like
Yeah, it's a balance.
the ego and the emotions. It really is. And it's like, how do you have that healthy self-talk with yourself while still holding yourself accountable?
It's
So
befriending your inner critic. Like it's changing them from being like that voice inside that is just constantly down on you, replaying other people's words, other people's voices, and that inner critic, and changing it into more of your inner guide or your inner teacher instead of inner critic. Because like a teacher is going to give you feedback, and it may not always be positive, but it's going to be constructive.
exactly.
It's not just going to tear you up inside. So that's yeah, that's a
And
very important difference.
and how do you get the body to respond to what the mind's telling you?
Mm,
So that will
yes.
be our conversation on the 29th. So if that sparks any interest within your own self, please come join us. Give us a follow, a like, a share, comment. We're on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. So
And
much,
Instagram.
and Instagram. I'm
We have
hardly ever
Instagram
on there,
too.
but yeah.
Yeah, I don't spend as much time on Instagram.
No, it's my least favorite.
Yes, I repost my TikTok videos on Instagram.
Fair enough. Uh, everybody have a wonderful night, and we'll see you on the 29th.
Bye, guys.